All right, guys, here goes the last video for your study guide. We're focusing on Unit 6 in addition to Unit 6 surface area and volume. All right, this one should definitely not take that long. All right, so coordinate geometry, remember we focused on distance and midpoint, slope. That's what you're always really focused on, parallel and perpendicular lines, right? So 26 is which one is closest to the length of GH. All right, so it's important for us, we have the distance formula here, which once again, hint, hint, the distance formula comes from Pythagorean theorem. Hint, hint. All right, the Pythagorean theorem and distance formula are pretty much the same formula, right? So as you see here, I actually did calculate the rise over run. As you see, I have a right triangle where I have an 8, then 11. And if you look at your distance formula, it's the difference in your x value squared plus the difference in your y value squared. And you take the square root. That's the Pythagorean theorem. The distance in your x values, the distance in your y values, right? But using the distance formula, I found the ordered pairs. G is -4, 5. H is 7, -3. I found the difference between my x values, 7 and -4, which is 11. Found the difference in my y values, 5 and -3, which is 8. I squared those numbers, 11 squared plus -8 squared. And make sure when you have parentheses, make sure when you put in your calculator, you have parentheses in your calculator. -8 squared is different from parentheses -8 parentheses squared. All right? 121 plus 64 is the square root of 185, which the square root of 185 is 13.6. And we went through the process of elimination, once again, focusing on Pythagorean theorem, right? The hypotenuse is always the longest side of your right triangle. So 7.6 and 10.2 would not make sense if you have a side of 11, a leg of 11. All right. 27 is the midpoint. Find the midpoint. All right. Your formula is that you add the two x values, divide by 2, add the two y values, divide by 2. Midpoint literally means the point in the middle, the point in the center. So think about the point that's exactly in the middle of -6 and -4, which is -5. The point between 1 and 3 is 2. All right, so as you use your midpoint formula, as you see here, absolutely correct, -5, 2. Using algebraic or coordinate methods to prove whether two lines are parallel, which pair of segments must be parallel. Remember the difference between parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines must have the same slope. They must have the same rise over the run. Same difference of y values over the difference of your x values. Must be the same. All right. So I calculated the rise over run using the coordinate method. Just calculating it. A to B, 4 over 1. I didn't find each ordered pair you could have, but that's kind of tedious work here when you just could calculate the rise over run. Now you see here, I listed out A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, H. And the only pair that has the same slope, the same rise over run, is A, B, and G, and H. All right, CD has an ordered pair. CD has coordinates of -1, 9, -7, 1. If EF is parallel to CD, what's the slope of EF? Once again, parallel lines mean they have the same slope. So I use my slope formula, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is rise over run, right? Your rise would be 6, your rise would be up and down. Your rise would be 8, your run would be 6. All right, 8 over 6, which simplifies down to 4/3. 4/3. Which line is perpendicular to the line y equals 2x plus 3? Remember perpendicular lines. We know parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Meaning if your slope is +2, the opposite of positive is negative, and the reciprocal of 2 is 1 over 2. So I eliminate A and B because those are positive slopes. All right, perpendicular means opposite. So opposite positive is negative. And so then I calculated the rise over run for C and D, and the one that gives me -1 over 2, a rise of -1 and a run of 2, or vice versa, a rise of -1 and a run of +2, is C. Which line is parallel to the line y equals x plus 7? Once again, parallel lines have the same slope. All right, so if I have my original line is y equals x plus 7. I have a slope of 1. I need to determine which one also has a slope of positive 1. I went through the process of elimination. C and D, well, C has a 0 slope. You must have mx plus b. Remember, y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope. Y doesn't have a slope. It's a 0 slope. X is an undefined slope, so it couldn't be C or D. Then you have to solve for y to get your slope. And the only one that gives me a slope of positive 1 is A. So if you do x minus y equals 5, negative y equals, let's see here, negative x plus 5, divide by negative 1, divide everything by negative 1. You get y equals x minus 5. If WXYZ is a rectangle, Z is located at negative 4, negative 5, and Y is located at negative 1, negative 7, find the slope of WZ. All right, so they gave us the ordered pair for ZY. Find the slope of WZ. These two lines are perpendicular. How do I know they're perpendicular? It's because every angle in a rectangle in a square are 90 degrees. Every angle in a rectangle square are 90 degrees. All right. So that means they're perpendicular, and perpendicular lines are opposite reciprocals. So I found the slope of YZ, which is a negative 2/3, and the opposite of negative is positive. So that eliminates C and D. And the reciprocal, the fraction flip, is 3/2. If the diagonals of square ABCD intersects at 5, 1 and point A is located at 2, 3, find the approximate length of BD. So your diagonals in the square are congruent. Remember, diagonals in your squares are congruent. All right. If we know that ABCD, if the diagonals intersect at 5, 1, that's your midpoint. And point A is 2/3, find the approximate length of BD. So I figured out what's the distance between the center and point A. I figured out what's the distance between the center and point A. All right, and once I found that distance, which was the square root of 13, I multiply it by 2, because if they intersect, they're congruent. They intersect, they equal halves. All right, so I do 2 times the square root of 13, just because since there's 2 lengths at the square root of 13, I just do 2 times the square root of 13, or you can do the square root of 13 plus the square root of 13, which is 7.2. AC and BD are congruent. If the radius of the circle below is 12 feet, find the area of the shaded region. So you have a trapezoid in a circle here. All right, they tell you the radius of the circle is 12. All right, we know the area of a circle is pi r squared. So I do 12 squared pi, which 12 squared is 144 pi. The area of a trapezoid, you add the 2 bases, the top and the bottom, divided by 2, times the height of the trapezoid, which the height of the trapezoid is the diameter of the circle. The height of the trapezoid is the diameter of the circle, as you see here in this picture. All right. So 20 plus 34 divided by 2 times 24 gives me the area of the trapezoid, which is 648. 648 minus 144 pi is 195.6. Once again, we want to find the shaded region. To find the shaded region, all right, I have to see the 2 shapes, 2 or more shapes that I see here, which is a trapezoid and circle. I found the area of each one, and I subtracted, because my shaded is what's not. My shaded region is you have to subtract the unshaded region to just get the shaded region. You take out, right? We took out part of the circle, so we take out the area of the circle. For 35, 36, give the slopes of the lines that are parallel and perpendicular to the line of the graph. All right, so I found the slope, my rise over run, which for 35, I had negative 1/4. Once again, parallel lines have the same slope, so negative 1/4. Perpendicular slopes are opposite reciprocal. The opposite of positive is negative. The opposite of negative is positive. And the reciprocal, the fraction flip of 1/4 is 4/1, which is just 4. 36, my slope is undefined because I have a rise of 7, a run of 0, rise over run. If I have a 0 in the denominator of a fraction, that's an undefined slope. Therefore, my parallel slope is undefined, meaning my perpendicular slope, so 7/0 flip is 0/7, which is just 0. So my perpendicular slope is 0. So for 37, find the total area. So what I did here, is I broke it up until you have a semicircle right here, which is semicircle area is pi r squared divided by 2. A triangle is base times height divided by 2. And a rectangle is length times width. All right. So I used the Pythagorean theorem to figure out the height, which is also the diameter of the circle, which is also the length or the width of the circle, or the length of the rectangle, excuse me. So if my triangle has a height of 24, well, base times height, 24 times 18 divided by 2, 216. If my height is if my height is 24, which 24 is the radius, the diameter of the circle, half of 24 is 12, that's my radius. So 12 squared divided by pi, 12 squared pi divided by 2, is 72 pi. Then my rectangle is length times width, so 24 times 16. And I add those up because those are 3 shapes added together to make a composite figure. If the diameter of the circle below is 28 meters, find the area of the shaded region, round to the nearest hundredth. All right. I have a circle and a triangle here. I found the area of the circle, which is pi r squared. And that only reason why I divide by 2 and 37 is because it was a semicircle, half a circle, but I got a full circle here. So pi r squared, they tell you your diameter is 28. Your radius is half the diameter, which is 14. So 196 pi. It's the area of the circle, but then I need to subtract the area of the triangle. You have to use a special right triangle here. And the reason why you have to is because if you know your hypotenuse is 28 and your 2 legs are congruent, you use a 45, 90 degree special right triangle, which those legs are 28 divided by 2. So as you see here, I do base times height of the triangle, 28 divided by 2, or 28 divided by the square root of 2, times 28 divided by the square root of 2, which is 784 divided by 2. Then I divide that answer by 2. Base times height, this is my B right here, that's my H. 28 divided by square root of 2 is my base. So is it also my height? So I multiply those, which is 784 divided by 2. Then you have to divide your base and height by 2, which is 196. So 196 pi minus 196 is 419.75 meters squared. And of course, you'll get a formula sheet for volume, surface area. We literally spent the past 2 weeks focusing on that self-paced packet. I will post the answer key, just so you can see it right now. Here goes the answer key for 39 through 45. We did not focus on surface area of a cone. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know.